Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk. So today I'd like to talk about the sonic booms. Now, last night I talked about the booms, the orbs, and the trumpet sounds. And I gave you an explanation for the trumpet sounds. It's the end of time. It's the trumpet. It's the trumpets. God's calling us home. And the orbs, angels, right? So I gave my theories on those two sounds, but I didn't really talk too much about the booms. So I did some research overnight, and one thing I find interesting is that, the national news is fake news. I don't even really think there's a genuine reporter in the whole bunch of them anymore. They're just people like me, talking heads who talk about stuff they hear on the internet. But your local reporters at your local affiliates, these guys, they're actually doing the hard work. They're out on the street pounding the ground. And so these reports of these boom sounds were coming from some key places. San Diego area, Southern California. The New Jersey area, Philly, New Jersey, that area. And then also in Florida. And then in Denver. And I believe... sometimes it's hard to tell on the internet the age of some of this stuff, but I believe all that went down yesterday, all on the same day. So, what are the booms? Hang on, gotta have some coffee for this. Well, I've heard people say, well, it was special experimental aircraft. Well, the local affiliate newscasters or news reporters in the areas where this went down, they did their homework, man. They did their reporting. They did their investigations correctly. They called the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, and they were like, there was no airplanes in that area supposed to be breaking the sound barrier around you or you would have heard it. Okay, so check. They called the military. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have any aircraft in that area doing anything today. I mean, it is Thanksgiving, close to it. So maybe it was earthquake related. Maybe it was an earthquake. So they called the earthquake people. What is the USGS and United States Geological Survey, and no seismic activity, nothing going on in the earthquake realm. So what are these noises? I have a theory. It's why the coffee cup's here. It's just a theory. A good episode of Coffee Talk, to talk about this theory of mine. So I used to live in the Denver area, and it was pretty well known to everyone that lived there that there was an underground city under the Denver airport. That Denver was connected with Cheyenne Mountain down in Colorado Springs via a very wide underground freeway, and that they had been working to connect Denver with each coast, and there's supposed to be major facilities all around the country underground that are connected via these underground highways. Now, the reasoning for this makes a lot of sense from a military perspective. One of the most vulnerable things about conducting military operations is attack from the air when you're trying to move, or even from the ground, when you're trying to move convoys of men and equipment across open ground. You're just sitting ducks. And that if our military were as paranoid as many people claim they are, and I think they are, and rightfully so should have been, that they've always been preparing for the day when the oceans wouldn't be enough to keep enemies off of American soil. And sooner or later we would be invaded. And if that happened, it would be a very good thing if we could move men and equipment from sea to shining sea without exposing them to attack from the air. So these underground highways have been something they have been working on since the 1950s, since the end of World War II. And now they've accomplished them. I think, I don't believe this is really even a conspiracy theory. It's just a truth that isn't really well known. That there are underground highways. I've seen men drive them. I've heard truck drivers talk about checking into a underground highway in New Jersey and coming out in Denver. And I've heard I've seen video of people going in and driving through these underground facilities on highways 6 lanes wide. Trucks, diesel trucks lined up with equipment and gear waiting to get into them in places like Arkansas. These underground facilities, I think, are pretty much not a very well-kept secret. So, back to the booms. I would like, before I go down this road of the underground theory, I would like to share with you a quick story inside of Coffee Talk. That once upon a time, in a rural area in Texas, 45 miles from the nearest Walmart, where I lived, that there was a man that had a family that was a very peculiar family. At first I thought they were Mormons, but they swore they weren't Mormons. They swore they were charismatics, but they never went to any churches in the area. They just did not participate. This guy had 8 kids. He was a captain in the Air Force, and he worked out at Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth. And he flew F-16s. Now, he had this woman, this wife of his, and all these kids out in this huge house, and they homeschooled. And so they just never went to town. They just never went anywhere. And they didn't interact with us much at all unless he was present. So this guy was really controlling and extremely jealous. And one day, a pickup truck went down their driveway and into this big house when I knew he was not home. Now, he used to fly over the house on a regular basis in an F-16 just to spy on his wife. I kid you not, I caught him doing it many times. We even laughed about it once. And he said, "Look, I'm just keeping an eye on the place." And I said, "Yeah, you sure you're not keeping an eye on that woman?" And he didn't even laugh, really. He just kind of gave me a look. So he used to fly over the house, I mean, weekly, really, sometimes almost daily, and have a look to make sure. I mean, you know, it's hard to miss an F-16 flying at treetop level. So one day a pickup truck showed up out there at his house, and I suspect it was probably the county coming out to do a property tax survey or whatever. You know, they do that every once in a while. Who knows what it was? It could have been an oil and gas person coming out there to talk about maybe starting up some fracking in their area or something. But anyway, he flew over and saw that, and I saw him fly over. And he got mad. He zipped out of there in that F-16, and he did a couple of maneuvers right over the house. And then he flew at treetop level and broke the sound barrier right over the top of their own house. Like, it was road rage with an F-16. I kid you not. This guy, yeah, bless his heart. But at any rate, yeah, I got to hear that sonic boom kind of up close and personal, man. I mean, it rattled the windows. And one thing I can say is it was a 2-stage sound. There was the sound of the sound barrier being broken, and then the sound of the sound bouncing off the earth. So it was kind of like a ka-womp sound. There's only one, obviously. I just did it twice so you could hear it better. Oh, I need some coffee. So, what if... So I think that kind of eliminates the sonic boom for me, because I've heard the audio tapes from yesterday, and they were not 2-stage sounds. They were, in fact, they were booms without any reverb tail rather. Being an audio guy, I can tell you that there is sound and then there is the reflection of sound. These booms had no reflection. That tells me they had to be coming from underground, which brings me back to the underground highways. You waited a long time for my ending here, so here's my wind up and my swing. What if these underground booms are explosions because the deep state and the military and the good guys and the bad guys on both sides, according to QAnon, there's this secret war going on and a lot of cloak and dagger stuff going on, and he talked about it being right around Thanksgiving. What if what everyone was hearing yesterday was the battle for the control of the underground cities and the underground highways? I mean, wouldn't you think that if those things existed and there was an internal civil war that was kind of secret, that was really like a coup and a counter coup, wouldn't you think there would be a battle for those underground installations and those underground highways? That one couldn't really control the surface if they didn't first control the underground highways. That's my interpretation. I think all the booms you heard yesterday were battles. They were explosions. You couldn't hear the gunfire because it wasn't enough to get through all of the earth. But big explosions, yeah, basically big bombs going off. Who knows what that would look like underground or sound like above ground if you heard it. To me, it would explain why the explosions that we were hearing in all of these recordings did not have a reverb tail. There was no after sound, no echo, as it were. So, just my theory. Maybe this is the cabal being taken down, and first to control the surface, you got to control the underground installations. Just something for you to think about while you're eating your turkey. All right, well, God save the Republic and happy Thanksgiving, and may you guys eat so much that you, well, not too much. You don't want to be sick, but yeah. Have a great Thanksgiving, really. Blessings to you and yours.